How to spit. Sometimes, you just gotta. If you absolutely, positively have to spit, you can learn to do it as courteously and cleanly as possible to get it over with. You can learn the when, where, and how of spitting to get the job done right. Part 1. Spitting courteously. 1. Only spit when it's absolutely necessary. Spitting needs to be done as cleanly as possible to be courteous to others who are around. It's typical to need to spit when you're sick with a cold, using tobacco, or are working physically. Never spit indoors unless you're using a receptacle of some kind. In the case that you are using a receptacle, as in wine tasting or tobacco chewing, it's important that you keep your receptacle concealed. Nobody wants to sit next to your empty water bottle filled with brown tobacco juice at the library. Put it away. Don't make a habit of spitting just to spit, even if you're outdoors. If you're sick or have a serious need, that's the only time you should be spitting in a courteous way. 2. Spit into a receptacle whenever possible. There's no way around it, spitting is gross. To help make it less gross, it helps to avoid spitting in places where people will be able to see it. If you're indoors, spit into the toilet and flush it. If you're outdoors, spit into a hanky and put it away. If you're tasting or chewing, spit into a proper receptacle, like a bottle or a can, then dispose of it. Sometimes, when you're outside working, it's just not possible or practical to spit into a hanky. If this is the case, walk a few paces away from where you're working and spit off the beaten path. If it's particularly gross, kick some dirt over it for good measure. 3. Never spit in high traffic areas. Whether you're indoors or outdoors, it's rude to spit on the ground where someone might be walking and risk stepping on it. Don't do it, and if you're going to spit on the ground at all, make sure it's out of the way. If you're playing sports and spit on the field, it's sometimes common courtesy to stamp it into the grass so your gross loogie isn't sitting at the 50-yard line for everyone to fall in. 4. Don't draw out the process. Spitting is a social taboo, and many others look on it as a disgusting habit. If you must spit, do it quickly, quietly, and get it over with. Drawing attention to yourself while you're spitting is rude in most cultures. Try to do it quietly and quickly, without a lot of preamble or fuss. Part 2. Spitting. 1. Gather the saliva to the front of your mouth with your tongue. You don't want to make a mess, so it's important to do most of the work before you spit. Gather the liquid or the saliva you're going to spit on top of your tongue to spit it out. Keep your cheeks in tight to your teeth to keep things in one place. 2. Purse your lips. Your lips need to be rounded to avoid spritzing your spit or experiencing any gross blowback. Nobody wants reverse fire. To keep it grouped and to keep your spit clean, round your lips as you prepare. Keep your cheeks caved and your lips tight. 3. Blow the spit forcefully from your mouth. No drooling. Get it all out at once. Take a breath and quickly blow the spit out from your mouth as quickly as possible. It should stay together if you've done it properly. 4. Arch your neck backward and snap forward. If you want to spit for distance, you need to arch your neck and put your back into it. As you snap forward, blow your spit out and see how far it goes. Be very careful with your aim. Generally, it's best to spit as close as possible to the ground to avoid making it gross. Bend over at the waist over your receptacle and spit. Part 3. Knowing when to spit. 1. Spit at someone's feet to communicate insult. In some cultures, and especially in baseball, it's common to spit on the ground, close to someone's feet, when you want to insult them. This is a common way of expressing disgust. This is always insulting. Because of this, it can also be provocative and confrontational, which could lead to an escalation in a tense situation. Be very careful if you ever attempt to do this. 2. Don't spit on your hand to seal a deal. It's a common trope in hyper-masculine television shows that two men will spit on their hand before shaking to seal a deal, but this is purely a product of pop culture, not a common tradition in any culture. If you've just bought a house and want to seal the deal with the realtor, just shake hands in the regular way. No spitting necessary. 3. Spit wine into a receptacle during a tasting. To avoid consuming too much alcohol during a wine tasting, it's traditional to spit the wine out into a bucket after tasting each different variety. Buckets will often be provided at professional tasting events, but they may not be. If you'd rather spit, make sure you locate a receptacle before taking wine into your mouth and never just spit it onto the ground. If you're only going to be tasting a few varieties, it's always perfectly okay to swallow the wine instead. Just get a designated driver. 4. Spit tobacco juice into a receptacle. It's common practice to keep the sidewalk and other surfaces free of tobacco stains by spitting into a jar, bottle, or receptacle that you keep on your person, ideally out of sight. Even if you're going to be outside, it's a good idea to spit tobacco into a receptacle. Old-style spittoons were first introduced to help control the spread of tuberculosis and other communicable disease spread by contact with bodily fluids. Spittoons are still common in some public buildings, including the United States Senate. 5. Spit on the ground to ward off bad omens. In northern India and some other regions, it's thought that spitting on the ground can help to ward off the possibility of bad omens. If you're a superstitious person and find a black cat crossing your path, a bird flying into your house, or you find yourself walking under a ladder, consider spitting courteously and quietly. It's good luck.